A person can be quiet for a variety of reasons. They might be shy or socially anxious, or they might just be introverted. But regardless of the reason, there are some things that you just should not say to a quiet person. And that is a topic for today's early morning hangout at your local coffee shop, Blakely's Brewery, or afternoon or night, wherever you are. Things people say to quiet people that quiet people are tired of hearing. I mean, it's really things that no one wants to hear or deal with, quiet or not, but it will be more relevant for those who are quieter. However, if you're someone who isn't really particularly quiet, I still think that you should join the conversation, because you might realize that you do or say some of these things, perhaps unaware of how not so fun it can be for others to hear it. And now I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm someone who is quiet. I mean, I'm definitely not loud, but it really is circumstantial. Sometimes I want to talk a lot, and sometimes I want to talk a little. And oftentimes I don't want to talk at all, but I definitely dealt with people's commentary growing up. However, today I would say that I'm just soft-spoken, but I do still want to talk about this because I know that had people not said and done some of the things that I'm going to bring up today, I would have felt less like shit, especially as a kid and a teenager, and even as an adult, because although I think that this topic might be more relatable to the younger folks out there, it can be just as relatable to humans of any age. And also, I'm using the word quiet people and quiet person quite a lot, which I know kind of makes it sound like this alien, which clearly is not my intention, but yeah, I don't really know what other word to use. Soft-spoken communicators. I don't know, that's too long. SSCs. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into it. Getting interrupted, talked over, and so on. So some people are chronic interrupters, and some don't even realize it. Perhaps because they themselves aren't too bothered when being interrupted, and so they don't understand how frustrating and discouraging it can be for someone else. So to try and make someone who doesn't really understand why, I'll try to explain. For some quiet people, it can take a lot out of them to, participate in conversation, whether that is in the form of energy for the introvert, or if it is courage for the socially anxious. So for the socially anxious, let's say, they probably had this long battle in their head before speaking, overthinking whether or not they should say this thing, how they should say it, and all the other things that can go through their mind. And so when they finally decide to speak and someone just cuts them off, not cool. Not cool regardless, but not cool. And why is it so uncool? Because really, what interruption says is that what I have to say right now is more important than what you are saying. And I much prefer saying this thing rather than listen to what you have to say. And if it's in a group, it's basically saying that I think that what I'm about to say will be more interesting or important or funny or whatever for the others listening than what you are currently saying. And now, does that mean that every interrupter is actively thinking about these things and intentionally want to diminish people? No. Some people are just too excited to share what they have to say, or they might just be impatient. There can be a variety of reasons for why someone is interrupting, but regardless, that is the message that is being conveyed. Now, if you are in a situation with several people and someone gets interrupted, don't redirect your attention towards the interrupter because they're the one crossing someone else's lane when they should have waited for their turn. So keep your attention on the person who was initially speaking and show them that you are still interested in hearing what they have to say, even if everyone else stopped listening. And this one brings me to my second point, which is don't point out a quiet person's behavior. What I've noticed throughout the years is that the people who tend to interrupt are sometimes the same people who point out how quiet you are or ask you why you look so sad or bored. And look, I'm well aware that it's oftentimes well intended, but it really just makes a person feel uncomfortable and awkward because really, what are you supposed to answer to something like that? I think the only time that it can be okay to ask those questions is if you genuinely want to check in with someone because you notice that their behavior is off, and only doing it in private, away from any crowd, not in front of everyone, and bringing any unwanted attention on them, especially if that person is socially anxious. You might as well just throw a basketball as hard as you can on their stomach, and that will make them feel less sick. And I speak from experience. And also, don't say things like, "Can you speak up?" unless you're in the club or something and it literally is really loud and you cannot hear what they're saying. And again, sometimes people say these things out of good intentions. You might want them to open up more or something like that. But I think that the success rate of publicly pointing out someone's behavior and directing unwanted attention on them, expecting that person will be motivated to open up more, is probably something like 0. And this brings me to my third point, which is actually don't point anything out. Sometimes people do things that they normally wouldn't do. So let's say that someone who is usually very quiet might be extra chatty. And if that happens, it's incredibly unnecessary to spur out things like, "Wow, she talks," or "Wow, I've never heard you say so many words before," or anything like that. Really, that goes for a lot of things. For example, let's say you have a friend who never goes out and then they decide to come out one time. There's really no need to point it out and say, "Oh wow, look who's out for the first time." Or if you have a friend who never drinks and then they decide to have a drink, again, unnecessary to comment that and say something like, "Wow, she's having a drink for the first time," or anything like that. And look, again, as all these things might be well intended and probably most of the time is a way to try and encourage or hype someone up, but it will most likely only cause discomfort and awkwardness. And this one is especially frustrating because it can make you feel like you just can't win. Like people will comment on you whatever you do. Like if you don't do these things, people will ask you why you're not doing them. And if you do these things, people will feel the need to point out that you're doing them. So as for being quiet, how about we just don't get involved in how others choose to navigate through the world, whether they choose to do that more quietly or more loudly. And the fourth thing that I would like to talk about is don't overly reassure people. And I will dive right into a personal example because, I've done this myself. So I remember when my sister came to visit me in California a couple years ago, and I took her on this amazing drive in the mountains. And she wasn't saying much, so I felt like I had to reassure her every few minutes and ask, are you having fun? Are you sure? Are you bored? Because I was so concerned about her enjoying herself. And I mean, she was having a blast, she was just taking it all in until she wasn't, because although my intentions were good, I was annoying her, by constantly trying to reassure her instead of just letting her enjoy the experience the way that she wanted to enjoy it, which in this case was sitting in the back of the car, quiet, with the windows down, and just being. Okay, number 5, being talked to in third person, or talked about in third person, really. Now, this one is very context-based, and there's usually a fine line between it being okay and it being rude. But basically, what I mean is being talked about as if you are not there. And here's an example. So let's say you're having dinner with your family, and your aunt asks your sister, does Lana eat fish? While you are literally right there. Or let's say that you're out with a few people, and again, you're literally right there, but someone decides to ask someone else, is Lana coming? You know what I mean? Like, you could just ask her, or me in this case. I'm standing right here. And now, why should we not talk about others in third person? So I found this really interesting article from 1973. I will put the link for it in my description box if you want to check it out. And in the article, I have my computer here, the writer says, or writes, it is, as you point out, inexcusably rude to refer to someone this way in his presence. Although generally it is done in pure thoughtlessness, it seems to negate the person's presence entirely, or to imply that he is either deaf, dumb, or stupid. And by the way, I know that there are quite a few Brits who are watching, and I would love to know, does anyone want to explain the whole "who is she, the cat's mother" response when being referred to in third person? Because apparently that is an old saying in Britain, and I would love to know if and how it has been used in your household. Anyway, that was all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please add to the list. Is there anything that you as a quiet person is tired of hearing? Is there something you as not a quiet person is tired of hearing? And could you relate to any of these things? Like, were you doing any of these things while being unaware of them? And do you even think that these things are things that you are tired of hearing? Perhaps you don't even mind hearing these things. Okay, share any thought that you might have. As always, let's chat in the comment section. And wait, I said that backwards. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the comment section.